3 years, that's how long Meadowvale believed Helena Park had simply walked away from her life. Her husband kept the porch light burning, the police called it a disappearance, and the community whispered their sympathy before moving on. But one gray April morning, inside a sealed chemical tank labeled Tank 42, that light finally went out. If you've ever trusted someone so completely that you'd stake your world on their honesty, you already understand the heart of this story. Love and trust, they build the safest walls, until one secret knocks them down. Helena's friends described her as the dependable one, the woman who organized fundraisers and still found time to design logos for half the town. Her husband, Marcus Layton, was the steady partner everyone envied, polite, reliable, the man who never missed a day at the plant. Together, they looked like the definition of quiet success. But when Helena vanished one summer morning without her car keys or wallet, that perfect picture started to crack. No argument, no note, no sign of struggle, just absence. The kind that swallows explanation whole. Police searched. Volunteers combed the trails. Marcus gave interviews in that calm, practiced tone that made people believe him. Weeks turned into months, then years. Her case faded into the long shelf of missing person files. Until that tank was drained. The moment investigators lifted the lid, the air inside Meadowvale changed forever. What they uncovered didn't just reveal a crime, it exposed a double life, one that would challenge every idea the town had about love, loyalty, and lies. What secret could turn a marriage built on routine into a cover for the unimaginable? How could a woman who seemed to help everyone be tied to the kind of darkness that ends with a body hidden at her husband's workplace? Stay with me, because the answers don't come easy, and the truth waiting inside Tank 42 will force you to question how well we ever really know the people we love. Before we step into Helena and Marcus's world, hit that subscribe button and share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think love can survive a secret that big? Let's find out. Every story begins long before the crime itself. To understand how a body ends up inside an industrial tank, we have to understand the people who built the life surrounding it. Helena Park Layton grew up far from Meadowvale's neatly trimmed lawns. She was born in a small coastal town 2 hours north, the kind of place where the ocean weathered everything, even ambition. Her mother, a librarian, her father, a bookkeeper with a habit of keeping quiet about bills that came due. Helena was a bright student, curious and observant. Teachers remembered her for the way she listened before speaking, always calculating, always considering the full picture. That quiet observation became her defense mechanism after the family's finances collapsed when she was 16. Her father had been the victim of a financial fraud that drained their savings. They lost their home, and Helena never forgot the helplessness of watching adults crumble under paperwork. That single event shaped her distrust of systems, banks, corporations, the invisible rules that let some people recover and others sink. By her 20s, she'd built a reputation as a talented graphic designer with a moral code that seemed rigid on the surface but flexible underneath. She believed good people sometimes had to bend the rules to make things right. She freelanced from home, built a client list, and learned how to navigate both art and technology, skills that would later become the foundation of her secret life. Helena wasn't dangerous, she was idealistic. But idealism has a sharp edge when paired with resentment. Then there was Marcus Layton, her opposite in every way. Born and raised in Meadowvale, Marcus was steady, predictable, and deeply loyal to the town that had shaped him. His father was a plant engineer, his mother a school secretary. He followed the same path, technical school, apprenticeship, a secure job at the local chemical plant. He didn't chase ambition, he maintained it, like a man who preferred clean lines and simple answers. When he met Helena at a community design fair, she was pitching a campaign for local environmental awareness, he was helping the plant sponsor it, their connection seemed natural. She admired his stability. He admired her imagination. They balanced each other. Within 2 years, they were married. Friends called them the perfect pair, Helena, the creative soul, Marcus, the anchor. She filled their home with art and late-night ideas. He brought routine and structure. Together they built a quiet life on Sycamore Drive, the kind that makes neighbors wave without knowing the details. But marriage, like any structure, is strongest where light passes through. In the shadows, hairline cracks began to form. Helena worked long nights, client deadlines, she said, and Marcus trusted her without question. He wasn't the jealous type, but he noticed things: the locked laptop, the hushed phone calls, the restless energy she carried when she thought no one was watching. When he asked, she smiled and told him not to worry. And Marcus didn't. Because worry didn't fit the man he believed himself to be. He was devoted, practical, and proud of being the husband who never raised his voice. But beneath that calm was something unspoken, the kind of dependence that turns love into ownership. Helena was the center of his world. Without her, his world didn't make sense. To the outside eye, Marcus Layton was the good man in a tragic story. To those who looked closer, there was a stillness in him that felt less like peace and more like restraint. Among their circle were a few supporting figures who would later shape the investigation. Clara Jensen, Helena's closest friend, was the first to sense something off. A fellow designer, she often collaborated with Helena on freelance projects and once caught a glimpse of an unfamiliar alias on her email drafts, Violet Mercer. Helena brushed it off as a branding experiment, and Clara believed her. For a while. Then there was Detective Ron Myers, the local officer who first took Helena's missing person report. He treated it as routine: adults disappear, they come back. But he remembered Marcus's composure. He'd seen grief before, and this wasn't it. Still, without evidence, suspicion was nothing more than intuition. Lastly, there was Helena's mother, Grace Park, dignified, weary, and quietly relentless. She refused to accept the theory that her daughter had walked away. Every year she called the police for updates. Every year the same answer: nothing new. Until she hired a private investigator. These were the people orbiting around Helena and Marcus, the believers, the doubters, the ones who would later piece together fragments of two lives colliding under the weight of secrets. What no one realized then was that both Helena and Marcus were right, in their own ways. She was helping people the system failed. He was trying to protect the life he thought he'd earned. But truth doesn't negotiate. It only waits. Meadowvale was the kind of suburban town that prided itself on predictability. Rows of beige houses lined the streets like matching paragraphs in a long, well-edited story. The lawns were trimmed, the sidewalks clean, and the loudest sounds on most evenings came from sprinklers ticking in sequence. It was a town built on routine, the perfect place for a secret to hide in plain sight. The Laytons lived on Sycamore Drive, a curved lane that sloped toward the edge of town where the tree line met the industrial district. Their home was modest, painted pale gray with a white porch railing Helena had insisted on repainting every spring. Inside, everything reflected her precision: symmetrical picture frames, color-coded shelves, a faint scent of lavender from the oil diffuser that ran day and night. To a visitor, it was the portrait of calm domestic order. A short drive down from Sycamore Drive stood Meadowvale Chemical, the plant where Marcus spent most of his days. The facility stretched over several acres of concrete, its pipelines and storage tanks forming a metallic skyline against the flat horizon. Marcus often joked that the place smelled like Permanent Monday. To him, the plant wasn't just a workplace, it was a second home, a place where structure ruled and every valve, every gauge, had a purpose. Helena used to bring him lunch there sometimes, waiting in her car while he signed off on maintenance logs. Workers waved, recognizing her bright red scarf, her signature accessory. They saw a woman devoted to her husband. No one noticed that, on some days, she wasn't there for Marcus at all. By the year she disappeared, Meadowvale had begun to change in subtle ways. Small businesses were closing. The plant had cut shifts, citing operational efficiency. People whispered about chemical runoff in the local creek, though no one wanted to accuse the town's largest employer. Marcus said little about it. Helena, on the other hand, asked questions, the kind that made people uncomfortable. Tension in the Layton household arrived quietly, disguised as exhaustion. Marcus would come home late, smelling faintly of solvents and machine oil. Helena's laptop glowed deep into the night, her fingers flying across the keys while she murmured to unseen correspondence. They still shared dinners, still exchanged morning smiles, but silence had crept into the spaces between them. Neighbors noticed the smallest things, a light left on in the garage until 3 a.m., the sound of Helena's car door shutting at odd hours, Marcus's sudden habit of checking the locks twice before bed. Nothing alarming, not enough to call anyone, just little changes that, in hindsight, looked like the prologue to disaster. In Meadowvale, peace wasn't shattered all at once. It eroded quietly, one unspoken worry at a time. And by the time anyone realized something was wrong, Helena Park Layton was already gone. It began like any other morning in early June. The kind that carries no warning, no tremor in the air. The sun rose over Meadowvale, washing Sycamore Drive in its soft, gold light. Neighbors fetched newspapers, dogs barked across fences, and the Layton's house stood quiet, too quiet. Marcus Layton woke first. The alarm clock flashed 6:15 a.m. He stretched, reached across the bed, and felt the absence before he even opened his eyes. Helena's side was cold. Her pillow, untouched since the night before. At first, he told himself she'd fallen asleep in her office downstairs again, buried under deadlines and empty coffee cups. But the chair was empty, the screen dark. Her car keys sat neatly on the entry table beside her phone. That phone would later become the first clue and the last comfort. Marcus checked the driveway. Her silver sedan hadn't moved. Every instinct told him to stay calm. Helena was practical, maybe she'd gone jogging, maybe she'd stepped out for an errand. He made breakfast for one, waiting for the familiar sound of her footsteps upstairs. The sound never came. By noon, calm gave way to unease. By sunset, unease hardened into something heavier. He called her closest friend, Clara Jensen. No answer. Then her mother. Grace hadn't heard from Helena since the evening before, when Helena mentioned she had something to take care of before a client meeting the next morning. That phrase, something to take care of, would haunt them all. Marcus drove to her favorite cafe, then to her office downtown. The receptionist shook her head. No one had seen Helena since Friday. He called the police by evening, his voice steady, rehearsed almost. Detective Myers arrived just after 9 p.m., taking notes as Marcus spoke. There was no sign of forced entry, no struggle, no missing luggage. Just a vanished woman. Inside the house, the air felt wrong, like a movie paused mid-scene. On the kitchen counter sat an open planner, a half-written grocery list, and a coffee mug with the ring of lipstick still visible along the rim. To the officers, it looked like an ordinary morning interrupted. To Marcus, it was the first crack in a world he thought he controlled. Days passed. The search began in the usual pattern: wooded trails, local highways, security footage, social posts. Volunteers printed flyers. Clara joined the search, walking with a flashlight through ditches and alleys, calling Helena's name into the wind. Grace visited every station, pleading with officers who'd already started using the word missing instead of abducted. Through it all, Marcus performed grief like it was a second job. He gave statements to local media, thanking the community for their support. He cooked dinner for volunteers. He smiled weakly for cameras and held Grace's hand at vigils. But when the cameras left, that smile disappeared faster than light leaving a room. Neighbors started remembering things, small details that suddenly meant more. Marcus's car leaving home late the night Helena vanished. The faint metallic scent on his clothes the next morning. A neighbor's dog barking non-stop near the woods behind their house. Details dismissed at first, swallowed by the need to believe the husband's story. Back at the chemical plant, Marcus resumed work within a week. He told colleagues it helped him stay sane. His shift logs showed late-night entries, maintenance checks, he said. No one questioned it. After all, Marcus was the man who never broke rules. But behind the neat handwriting in those logs lay the start of something else, guilt, perhaps. Or fear. He spent long hours wandering the plant's shadowed corridors, stopping before Tank 42, a vessel decommissioned months earlier. He'd linger there, staring at the reflection of his face in the metal curve. No one noticed. Or if they did, they chose silence. Meanwhile, detectives combed Helena's devices. Her email history was clean, too clean. Deleted files, encrypted messages, fragments of financial transactions that led nowhere. Still, one detail stood out, the alias, Violet Mercer. It appeared in an unregistered account connected to dark web forums, one that had gone silent the exact day Helena disappeared. Detective Myers felt it in his gut, this wasn't a random disappearance. Something had happened that night, something calculated. But there were no witnesses, no evidence of violence, no body. Only a void, perfectly maintained. The investigation slowed. Marcus returned to smiling politely at neighbors. The porch light stayed on. And beneath the calm surface of Meadowvale, the truth waited, sealed away, suspended in silence, until the day the tank was opened. When a person goes missing, the first 72 hours decide the tone of everything that follows. After that, the story shifts from search to recovery, though no one in Meadowvale dared say it aloud. Detective Ron Myers began the investigation the same night Marcus filed the report. He'd seen dozens of domestic disappearances, lovers' quarrels, debt runaways, quiet elopements, but something about Marcus's composure stayed with him. There was no tremor in the man's voice, no restless pacing. He spoke in straight lines, offering details before they were asked. The search grid started with the obvious, wooded trails behind Sycamore Drive, the local reservoir, and the two-lane road leading toward the docks. Police volunteers logged 14 square miles in the first week. They found nothing, no tire marks, no personal effects, not even a misplaced scarf. Inside Helena's home office, Myers noticed the order. It was too precise, drawers arranged alphabetically, files labeled by color, a single photo frame turned slightly toward the wall. Behind the desk sat her laptop, wiped almost clean except for a single autosaved file, a half-finished logo proposal with an encrypted footer that read, VM Project 72. The tech team flagged it but couldn't decrypt it. Grace Park refused to accept the phrase cold case. She visited the station daily, bringing boxed lunches for the detectives as if kindness could buy momentum. She hung flyers across town, her daughter's smile printed in fading ink beside the word missing. At night she replayed Helena's last voicemail, a short message about bringing over a photo album, trying to find hidden meaning in the ordinary tone. Clara Jensen, the friend, organized community searches. Her voice cracked each time she called Helena's name through the trees, as if the echo itself might answer. But privately, Clara confessed to Myers that Helena had seemed anxious weeks before she vanished. She'd mentioned files she shouldn't have and an upcoming meeting that might fix everything. Clara assumed it was work stress. Meanwhile, Marcus's behavior puzzled everyone. He kept his job at the plant, declined therapy, and told friends he needed to stay productive. On camera he wept at vigils, yet co-workers described him as oddly detached, quiet, punctual, mechanical. The plant's manager, Earl Benson, vouched for him. Marcus isn't the type to lose control. Still, subtle contradictions crept in. Security logs showed Marcus entering restricted sections of the facility during off hours. He explained it away as maintenance checks, the kind he'd always done. Myers noted the times, midnight entries, precisely dated around Helena's disappearance. The investigation turned in circles. A hiker reported a woman's jacket near the riverbank, not Helena's. A local trucker claimed to have seen someone matching her description at a roadside diner, false lead. Each hope flared and died. Months dragged into a year. The town moved on. But Grace Park didn't. She hired Ethan Rourke, a former cyberforensics analyst turned private investigator. Rourke began where police had stopped, the digital trail. He recovered fragments from Helena's cloud backups, invoices under the alias Violet Mercer, references to clients abroad, and a string of encrypted emails exchanged with accounts tied to data laundering forums. One message stood out. Sent 2 days before Helena vanished, it read. They're using discharge reports to mask transfers. I have proof. If anything happens to me, check the plant logs. Rourke delivered this to Myers, who reopened the case. For the first time, suspicion tilted toward Marcus. Police subpoenaed the plant's internal access records. Among thousands of entries, one date repeated, June 5th, with Marcus's ID swiping into Tank 42's Sector 3 separate times. The plant called it routine system checks, yet the tank had been listed inactive. When confronted, Marcus explained it calmly, sensor error. I went to verify. His voice didn't shake, but his hands did. Myers began surveillance, quiet, deliberate. Marcus's nightly drives to the docks resumed. He'd park for hours, staring at the dark water, then return home near dawn. Neighbors saw him digging in his backyard one weekend, claiming he was replanting shrubs. Officers inspected, nothing suspicious. Emotionally, the case began corroding everyone involved. Clara stopped sleeping. Grace withdrew from her church, convinced the police were protecting the plant. Even Myers felt it, the slow ache of chasing ghosts. His notes filled with questions, not answers. A second year passed. Then came the break neither police nor family expected. During a scheduled plant audit, an environmental contractor reported inconsistent wastewater data, files showing altered timestamps and missing safety forms. One file name matched the encrypted label from Helena's laptop, VM Project 72. The contractor handed it to regulators called Myers. Connecting those records to Marcus was simple, his signature authorized the edits. He claimed he'd only followed orders from management. But by now, the coincidences stacked like bricks. His late-night entries, Helena's warnings, the alias, the missing woman. Still, there was no body. And without one, everything remained theory. Grace Park's health began to fail under the weight of waiting. Yet she pressed Rourke to continue. Find where she is, she said, not what they did to her, where. Rourke turned his attention to satellite data around the docks. He traced Helena's last phone signal to a warehouse camera feed from a private marina. The grainy footage captured her arriving around midnight, stepping out of a rental car, phone in hand, and then disappearing off frame. She never returned. The timestamp? 32 minutes before Marcus's badge-logged entry at the plant's side gate. That discovery reignited everything. The district attorney approved a new forensic warrant. Teams re-examined every tank in the facility. It was a grueling, meticulous process, pressure tests, fiber optic scopes, residue sampling. For weeks, they found nothing. Then, on an April morning 3 years after Helena vanished, workers at the plant began routine maintenance on Tank 42. A technician noticed an odd reading, low gas levels despite the tank being sealed. They called Marcus's replacement to supervise the inspection. What they found would end the search, the speculation, and every illusion that Meadowvale was still a quiet town. The call came just after sunrise. A low, matter-of-fact voice from the Meadowvale chemical plant reporting a maintenance anomaly inside an unused tank. The words meant nothing at first, until the dispatcher recognized the facility's address. Within hours, police units lined the plant's perimeter. Detective Myers stood by the access gate as workers unscrewed the bolts on Tank 42. The air carried the sharp tang of metal and cold oil. Nobody spoke. The first technician peered through the inspection hatch, then froze. He didn't need to say it, everyone saw the color drain from his face. Inside, in the hollow dark, lay what the town had searched for 3 years. Forensic units moved carefully, cataloging every step, every breath. The body was preserved more than anyone expected, sealed in an environment that slowed decay. Jewelry still clung to the wrist. A small silver ring, engraved with an H. It was Helena. The shock rippled outward like an electrical surge. Reporters swarmed the gate, workers covered their faces. The missing woman wasn't lost in some distant city or buried in woods. She'd been here all along, hidden inside the very place her husband had guarded. When police escorted Marcus from his shift that afternoon, he didn't resist. He didn't speak either. Just stared ahead as if every sound around him came from underwater. The town watched, the man once called reliable, decent, trustworthy, now handcuffed in his own workplace. At first, it seemed simple: husband kills wife, hides body, continues life. But the twist came not from what they found in the tank, but from what they found with it. At the base of the chamber lay a small, waterproof data drive sealed inside a plastic maintenance pouch. It bore Helena's handwriting, VM Archive. The drive contained encrypted files, environmental readings, internal compliance emails, and payment transfers connecting the plant to offshore accounts. Among them were messages from Helena's alias, Violet Mercer, documenting her investigation into the company's falsified discharge reports. The evidence didn't just expose Marcus, it implicated the plant itself. Suddenly, the question shifted. Had Marcus acted alone, or had he silenced her under pressure from something larger? When Myers confronted him with the drive, Marcus's mask cracked for the first time. He didn't deny the body, didn't argue about the tank. He whispered only one sentence. She wasn't supposed to die. It wasn't a confession, it was exhaustion. Grace Park collapsed when the news reached her. Years of searching ended with truth too heavy to carry. Clara couldn't bear to attend the press briefing. She said hearing Helena's name in past tense felt like betrayal. The twist redefined everyone's place in the story. Helena, once the missing wife, became a whistleblower who'd stumbled onto a corporate crime. Marcus, once the grieving husband, became the link between love, fear, and cover-up. And Meadowvale, once just another quiet suburb, became a map of secrets layered under civility. As investigators secured Tank 42, Myers looked out over the field of steel drums and cooling towers, realizing that the case he'd filed as a routine disappearance had been sitting beneath his jurisdiction the entire time, sealed under metal, guarded by silence. What began as a marriage built on trust had ended as a warning. Even the safest hands can hide the most dangerous truths. When the courtroom doors finally opened, Meadowvale filled the benches. Reporters lined the aisles, their lenses focused not on the prosecution table but on the man seated beside his defense attorney, Marcus Layton, the husband who'd kept a secret buried beneath steel. The trial stretched for weeks. Prosecutors presented the drive Helena had hidden, the plant's records, the forensic evidence linking Marcus's access key to Tank 42. The defense argued panic, claiming he'd found her lifeless and concealed the body out of fear the plant's corruption would destroy them both. No one believed it entirely. When the verdict came, guilty of manslaughter, obstruction, and evidence tampering, the courtroom didn't cheer or gasp. It just exhaled. Years of silence breaking in one collective breath. Marcus lowered his head as the sentence was read, 25 years. He didn't look back as officers led him away. For Grace Park, there was no peace in justice. She'd spent 3 birthdays, 3 winters, 3 long summers searching for her daughter, only to learn that Helena's last act had been one of courage. Her daughter had tried to expose wrongdoing, not run from it. Grace took comfort in that, even as grief hollowed the victory. Clara Jensen left Meadowvale soon after the sentencing. She told friends she couldn't walk the same streets without seeing Helena's car in every driveway. Before she left, she placed a small bouquet by the plant's fence, lavender and white lilies, Helena's favorites. Detective Myers filed his final report quietly. The case that had haunted his desk for 3 years was over, but the questions it left behind weren't. How many people had looked the other way? How long had the truth been sitting in that sealed chamber while the town told itself it was safe? The plant paid its fines. Executives issued public apologies. Yet the feeling in Meadowvale never returned to normal. The townspeople began locking doors earlier, checking the news more often, and greeting one another with eyes that lingered a second too long, as if everyone wondered what else they'd failed to see. Helena's story became both a cautionary tale and a mirror. Some saw her as a victim, others as a participant in something dangerous. But between those interpretations lived the truth, that human motives are rarely pure, and that love, when tested by secrets, can bend toward destruction. 3 years after the verdict, Tank 42 was dismantled and removed from the property. In its place grew a patch of wild grass, swaying against the fence line where sunlight caught the metal tags that once bore its name. Grace visited occasionally, standing quietly, the wind tugging at her coat. She never spoke at those visits, she didn't have to. Because some endings don't need words. Only acknowledgement. And the unspoken reminder that what we hide will always surface, one way or another. Thank you for watching this story on Twisted Family Crime. Helena and Marcus Layton's case reminds us that sometimes, the most disturbing secrets aren't buried in the woods, they're hidden inside the walls we trust the most. If this story left you thinking, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe Marcus acted alone, or was he just another casualty of a deeper corruption? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us uncover more stories where truth and deception live side by side. Join me next time, when we explore another chilling mystery, one that proves even the smallest towns can carry the heaviest shadows.